Well, Lauren and I have returned back to the Great White North after our trip down to D.C. to watch the 45th President of the United States get inaugurated, Donald J. Trump. It feels good to say President Trump. All right, so Lauren and I were doing different beats. Lauren was kind of doing the protester stuff. I was doing more of the inside the inauguration ground stuff. And we were comparing notes, and we figured we might as well air out our laundry, so to speak, in front of everyone at home as well to... for me, Lauren, this was the tale of two inaugurations. What I experienced was very different than what you experienced. So why don't you set the scene a little bit? Tell us about what, inside the inaugurations where the history was made. We can say where you were in the protests, where the news was made. So tell us a little bit about what you saw when you were covering the protests.
Right. So a lot of people have seen what happened initially when Black Bloc and Antifa showed up. We got up that morning on Inauguration Day. We went to go to where the gates were for people to enter the inauguration. First thing we see, you've got protesters chained arm in arm around the gates, making sure no one can get in there. And the police weren't doing anything. They weren't attacking them, nothing. They were letting them stand there in their chain, and people were going into other entrances. But then I'm literally walking down the street away from these chained protesters, and I see this massive group of people come running, all in black. And I'm like, what is this? What is going on? And I see them with signs, "Make racists afraid again." And they're just yelling and screaming. And I see fireworks going off. And they run into the street, and I just see hammer going straight into a car and smashing
like
that
they were
window.
throwing hammers.
I don't know if they were throwing them, but I think people saw in the footage, they were smashing the windows of this car. And I'm like, what is going on here?
Mm-hmm.
And
I remember getting a phone call from you, or we were texting kind of while all of this was going down, obviously not in the thick of it. And both you and your cameraman, Oliver, were both saying this is the craziest sort of protest riot that we've ever seen in our entire life. And I know that you covered a lot of protests, so that was certainly saying something.
Right, yeah, and the police didn't do anything for a little bit because they were just trying to catch up to them. But once these windows started getting smashed and people, I mean, there was a guy on the ground with blood all over his head. I don't know. I assume he got knocked over by all the people running by or something happened.
Like an innocent guy.
Chaos. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was just absolute chaos. So of course I mean, people might not understand why I was so urgently running in the video. They're like, oh, you were exaggerating. No, you guys, the police were chasing with batons and spray. And if you didn't keep running, you were going to get hit because they are trying to stop this madness in the streets. So it's like, it's run or die when you're there. And they're trying to get them confined into a street. So these anarchists were running away from, I don't know if I'd call them anarchists. They're Black Bloc, they're communists.
Right.
ANCOMs, Antifa, just a group of all of these left-wing, socialist, anti-Trump people. And they were running, trying to go all around the city, staying away from the cops. And they finally confined them. And I think an important point to make here is, I said in the video, this is what the anti-Trump movement is looking like. They truly believe Trump is literally Hitler and that they need to do anything to stop him. And I got a lot of crap for that. People were saying, this isn't what the anti-Trump movement is. This is a few radicals. Okay, but the media are saying he's literally Hitler. How do we respond to Hitler and Nazis? How do we respond to that? You do what these people were doing. You go into chaos. You use violence.
Yeah, well, that's the whole thing. You use violence when you don't have words, as far as I'm concerned. And I think that society has depraved a lot of these, frankly, are young people, 20s, 30s. They've depraved them of their words. We've removed free speech from places like college campuses. We've removed the alternate, the other side of the story from the mainstream media and popular culture. So these kids, all they really have are feelings and liberal tropes that tell them they are part of some sort of minority or a persecuted group. At the end of the day, they're all persecuted. At the end of the day, they're all oppressed. They're oppressed by the white man. They're oppressed by, white privilege. They're oppressed by Donald J. Trump, who's apparently literally Hitler. And because they don't have the words to express their own logic, they don't have the words to actually, I saw you trying to get into a debate with folks at Deplorable, right? They will not debate you because they don't have informed arguments. Yeah. They do not have logic. And when you take away a human being's words, what are you going to do? You're going to react physically. And I think that's why we saw a little bit of what you saw there.
And they truly thought they were victims. I mean, they were yelling when they got surrounded after just destroying these businesses. They were yelling, "This is what a police state looks like." What do you expect when you're destroying people's stuff?
And people are going to show up in riot gear when you're throwing and smashing stuff.
Yeah, and the normal people that, quote unquote, normal people that would have been at the Women's March and stuff, without any black masks, they weren't Antifa, they were just holding there with their Trump is a pig sign or feminist nonsense that were standing on the street watching, were chanting, "Let them go," about the Black Bloc protesters that were being arrested. So don't tell me these people can't be compared. The normal people, the celebrities like Madonna saying we should blow up the White House, the people cheering let them go to the black bloc that were destroying businesses, these are connected.
Yeah, and we're going to get to the Women's March in just a second. I just want to know when the mainstream media is going to start calling these people out and starts calling the alt-left and admit the fact that these are the real bigots, that these are the real racists. Because I'll tell you right now, if it was Hillary Rodham Clinton that was inaugurated this past week, and it was Trump supporters out there throwing punches, throwing bricks, breaking glass, are you freaking kidding me? We would have a total, this would be news that would be populating, frankly, every headline for the next year. I want to make one quick comment about the inauguration, if I can.
Right.
A lot's been made about the fact that the numbers were a lot less than what we saw, say, in comparison to Barack Obama's inauguration back in 2008. I will say this. The numbers were smaller, but I think that's for several reasons. Number one, we saw protesters blocking a lot of the inauguration entrances. We saw them actually blocking even servicemen and women from getting in, which is sort of ridiculous when they wanted to go see their own president get inaugurated after they serve our country. But even more than that, 90% of the District of Columbia, of Washington, D.C., is Democrat. That's just their numbers. 90% of them voted for Hillary Clinton, right? So those folks, 90% of DC, did not show up to their own backyard for the inauguration, right? You have a lot of Democrats that were elected, yes, in the White House, in Congress rather, who are not going to show up. I don't care. I'm concerned about the populace. So 90% of the locals don't show up. When it comes to America en masse, 60% of Americans have less than $1,000 in their bank account, okay? That wouldn't even get you a hotel room for one night to be in DC. A lot of those people, that 60% of America that only has $1,000 or less in their bank account, those are the folks who voted for Donald J. Trump. Those are the people who say, I want my steel mill job. I have been ignored by folks up at the top, and you speak to me. But guess what? I can't take Friday off of work. I don't have the money to even get me the plane ticket, let alone to spend money on a hotel room that is 900% above what it otherwise would cost me. So I think that's why we saw smaller numbers. We didn't see 3 million people there. We saw shy of 1 million. And I will say this as well, and you can check out one of my videos from on the ground there. There were a lot of millennials there in comparison to the Women's March, which is what I want to talk about next. The Women's March, it was all like has-been beat up former bra burners in comparison to the young lads that were out at the inaugural grounds. Okay, so Women's March, we actually were both there. You were kind of losing your voice, so I decided to put out a video really quickly. You should check that out too, where I kind of played a little trick on the folks that were out there. What was your perception of the Women's March? I will say kudos to them for at least being much more civil. I mean, night and day, apples and oranges compared to the Bloc Antifa folks. What was your takeaway from the Women's March?
Well, yeah, at least they were peaceful, but they're still spouting the same ridiculous rhetoric. They're still, people had Mein Führer with pictures of Trump. You're still saying Trump is literally Hitler and enabling these people that are being violent, saying, you know what, you should act this way against literally Hitlers. I mean, I think you and I would both be out there fighting Trump if he were gassing Mexicans, but that's not what's happening. No. So stop lying, people running in the Women's March. But from what I saw, it was just, they had no concise message.
Oh, yes, it did. It was, pardon my French, vagina. That was their message. Their message was vagina, okay?
They literally were saying pussy power and holding signs. Why do you care about your vagina so much,
They're
ladies?
obsessed.
Like, why are you so obsessed? Imagine if people were out there, penis power party. Like, what?
It's very bizarre. Their hats even were called pussy hats. I was like, to understand you clearly, you want to be treated with respect and you want to see a restoration of decency to the White House, and you are wearing a symbol of your genitalia on your head, just so I understand you clearly. Okay. About 500,000 people showed up to the Women's March in DC. Then it's happening all over the world. Let's be very clear. The partners of this Women's March, NAACP, Planned Parenthood, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, all of them folks, and it's not rocket science, it's not conspiracy, it's just matter of fact. All of those groups are funded by George Soros. This is George Soros, who's a guy who we know that every single one of his intentions, which is essentially a globalist takeover of both America and frankly the world, they are being underserved and frankly pushed back against by Donald Trump's very election, let alone his plan for America. So it is in his best interest to send these plane loads literally plane loads of people from all over the world to DC and elsewhere in order to capture the media's attention and steer the course of public opinion to say, oh yeah, well, less people showed up for the inauguration, but look how many people are taking to the streets. Not my president, yada, yada, yada. Speaking about planes, Lauren.
Faith and I were in the airport getting some drinks before we get on the plane, eating some food, and we sit down, we're through security, and we look around us. You've got pussy hats everywhere. And at first we're like, okay, maybe they're flying in America.
Yeah.
Maybe they're like, it's still weird that you have the money to stay in DC when it costs like a ridiculous amount for a hotel room.
It was
like,
over $1,000 a night for a hotel room.
It's
like
crazy that you can
one.
afford that.
Yeah.
Right? But no, these were Canadians getting on our plane with Hillary shirts and pussy hats. And we have footage of it.
Yeah.
They were being imported.
Yeah. Can you imagine, first of all, if Americans showed up for Trudeau's election or being sworn in November, whenever it was, 4th last year or the year before? I think that there would be a national protest to that. I know that our state broadcaster would be going wall to wall saying, what the hell are you doing in our country protesting our democratic election and results? Whereas it's totally cool for a bunch of Canadian ladies to get on a plane, put these vagina hats on their heads, and then take to the streets and protest a democratic result in a country that's not their own. It's sort of crazy. Okay, anything shock you while you were there?
Well, I mean, I think we need to mention what the streets looked like after this protest. I mean, most of these people, one of the signs that was on the ground after this protest was, we must protect Mother Earth. We only have one of them. I just want to show you guys a few of the pictures from this. Just check this out.
It's disgusting. It's disgusting. They talk a big game about environmentalism and then they leave all their stuff under there. And by the way, the majority of the signs that I saw were about abortion, right? So it was so bizarre to me that you have hundreds of thousands of women come out there and they're like, we are women, hear us roar. Meanwhile, in order to be there, you essentially had to sign in blood that you are pro-abortion. Like that was, if there was one takeaway, it was that this was a kind of, in a way, I'd say that the undertone was, this was a pro-abortion march, which I found just to be very weird when you've got celebrities up there saying, I'd really like to protect my daughter's rights to an abortion. I'm Scarlett Johansson. Really? Really? You hope that your daughter can one day get an abortion? That's twisted, lady. And that's really sick. And I think, frankly, that the mainstream media and feminist culture has screwed with the neurons in your brain.
The don't tread on my vagina signs were the worst thing I'd ever seen. These people have to understand. I think the left and the right have a real big misunderstanding of each other when it comes to the topic of abortion. The right thinks that the left are literally murderers, but the left don't consider babies to be people. So in their mind, they're not.
They're a lump of cells, just like you, by the way, just like you.
Whereas the left believe that the right hate women and are trying to take away their rights. No, the right truly believe you are murdering children. Like, you got to have an honest conversation here. They're not trying to tread on your pussy. They're not trying to stop your rights. They
at the end of the day,
believe you're murdering people.
Yeah, so it's my body, my choice, but it's not just your body. That's a conversation, a video for another day. My golly, we could go on. Okay, so Kate, final question. What's next for America and the world?
What is next for America and the world? Oh boy. Well, I think the most interesting thing is going to be seeing if these riots continue at Trump events, if the media continues to spew this rhetoric, and how Trump is going to react to the media. Is he going to continue his "you are fake news, CNN, shut up"? Is he going to stand for it? Or is the propaganda war going to continue?
Yeah, I think for me, what's next, just as like an action, I think both the right and the left have to get out of this phase of disbelief. Like, I think there are a lot of people on the right who are still like, whoa, we memed a man into office. Where are we now? And then there are folks on the left who are still like, not my president. I'm going to blow up the White House because my name is Madonna. Everyone needs to just accept it. Like, wake up. This is real life. Donald J. Trump is your president. He is 100% your president for the next 4 years. And you're just going to have to suck it up, buttercup, and hopefully you're going to learn to like it, for those of you who aren't predisposed to liking the man right now.
Well, that's the thing. You gotta, I spoke to some people and they said they don't want Trump to succeed. I wouldn't care if it was Hillary in office. I don't care who won. I want them to succeed because I want America to succeed. That is millions of people's lives on the line based on how successful this presidency is. And I want to see Trump succeed, and I hope that leftists will want to see Trump succeed and not see him fail.
Final point. What I want to see from Trump going forward is a little more focus on the individual. Obviously, America is amazing, and he's going to make it great again. But I think what makes America so great is its robust understanding and belief in the individual. And while nationalism is great insofar as it's way better than globalism, it's great because it brings us one step closer to the individual. And I'd like to see a little bit more rhetoric that focuses on individuals that give way to the nation being so amazing as opposed to the inverse. We good?
We good.
Okay, fantastic. For the Rebel.media, I'm Faith Goldie.
And I'm Lauren Southern.
For all of our coverage of the inauguration, head to rebelwashington.com and hey, help us cover the costs to keep us safe.